Hey, I hope all is going well and you're having a beautiful, blessed day. And right now, I want to really catch up with you on some sermon notes that happened a few weeks ago on February 8th and 9th. And as you guys know, if you've been following me for a while, we are in a new sermon series called What Keeps You Up at Night. And the sermon subject for this particular message is fear. So, right off the bat, we learn that there are two kinds of fear: the fear of immediate danger and the fear of imagined danger. So, my next section of my notes is titled Two Things We Need to Remember When Fear Keeps You Up at Night. The first thing we need to remember is the most important thing that we need to remember. And it is that God is more powerful than any enemy we will ever face. So there are 3 Bible verses that illustrate this point. And on my notes, they're not written down, but they are written down on my blog at CoachMarieNicole.com. You can go search for these notes there. And the first story comes from the spies in Cana, which is Numbers 13. I believe it's Numbers 13, verse 14. And the second story comes from, is about Elisha's servant, and that story comes from 2 Kings 6, verse 16. And the third story is all about how God is always with you and me. And it comes from 1 John 4:4. 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. And so the second thing that we need to remember is that God is with us. And so there are 3 verses that illustrate this point that are also in my notes but not on these notes. Are God's promises to Moses, which is found in Exodus 3, verse 12. God's promise to Gideon, which is found in Judges 6 and 7, or chapter 6, verse 7. I'm not sure because of how it's written. And then God's promise to you and me, which is found in Isaiah 4:10. So there are 2 things that we need to do when fear keeps us up at night. The first thing that we need to do, and the most important thing that we need to do, is filter what goes into our minds. And the Bible verse that is listed here comes from Psalms 101, chapter 101, verse 3, and it says, I will refuse to look at anything vile or vulgar. Let me say that again. I will refuse to look at anything vile or vulgar. And so that comes from, like I said, Psalms 101, verse 3. And the second thing we need to do is replace fearful thoughts. The first thing we need to do is replace fearful thoughts with prayer. And the scripture about prayer comes from Philippians 4, verse 6. And like I said, all these Bible verses are listed in my notes. The second thing we need to replace our fearful thoughts with is scripture. All God's scripture is His word, and His word is truth. So therefore we can rely on it as something that we can lean on. The third thing that we need to replace our fear with is action. We might be thinking, oh, that is so scary. What if I fail? And we see that all over the internet all the time, right? What if I fail? And so, but what if you don't? What if God pulls you through? What if you fly in that in that experience? So that verse comes from Philippians 4:9. And like I said, all of these verses are listed in my notes on my blog at coachmarienicole.com. And so that leads me to the last thing that I want to share with you, which is the memory verse for this particular week. And the memory verse comes from Psalms, the book of Psalms, the book of Psalms, chapter 4, verse 8, and it says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, will keep me safe." Now, I would highly, highly suggest, especially if you are a person who is fascinated with scary stories or watching gory movies, and you find yourself maybe having nightmares at night, or you're going through hardships, maybe you are going through a sickness, maybe some loved one of yours is going through a sickness, and you don't know what's going to happen. I would suggest, and I'm going to take my own advice, that you and I, that we make this our prayer at night, because we know that we have a Father who's watching over us. And all He wants for us is peace. And sometimes the most peaceful moment that we will have is when we are asleep and we know that we've given our day to God in our prayers. And the last thing we say is, "God, please take care of me." I always say in my prayers, "God, if it is your will, please let me open my eyes tomorrow to serve you another day." And I always begin my morning as often as I can by saying, "God, thank you for waking me up." And so I want to not only give that advice to you, but give that to you as a challenge. Maybe it's something that you need to begin today or start your Monday with. I don't know how you like to work things, but I believe that not all action steps that are new have to be taken on a Monday. So if you are somebody who, well, anybody, but especially those who tend to worry a lot, and I know that a lot of people are out there who tend to worry a lot, I hope that you would take this verse and that you would make it your prayer. I'll talk to you guys later. I do have another set of sermon notes that I have to write in my notebook because I listened to them and just wrote them down in my phone. But I have to write them on paper in order to share them with you guys. So I will talk to you soon, and those notes will be delivered soon. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.